Alrighty. A very good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Cialfo Learning Series, where we're going to be talking about future skills and important skills that are going to set you apart from a robot. Before we get started, I'd like to share a short video with you. This is a video created by the World Economic Forum, where they talk about the future of jobs, and I think this really sets the stage for what we're going to be discussing today.
To continue. The ongoing shift in the division of labor between humans, machines, and algorithms might displace 85 million jobs worldwide in the next 5 years, while 97 million new roles, ones that are more adapted to this new task distribution, may emerge. By 2025, companies expect to displace roughly 6% of their total workforce. 1 in 2 workers will need reskilling, and those remaining in their current roles will need to update 40% of their skill set to adapt to the changing labor market. There is a way to collectively benefit from these challenging times. Decades of research have shown that the most valuable asset of any economy or company is its human capital. Around the globe, companies are already experiencing a shortage in relevant skills for future roles and are investing in reskilling and upskilling their workforce. By 2025, organizations say they will train over 70% of their employees to ensure they can smoothly transition into the jobs of tomorrow. These include DevOps engineers, artificial intelligence specialists, digital marketing managers, talent acquisition specialists, and customer success specialists. It will take on average between 2 weeks and 5 months for workers to pick up new skills, allowing them to move into these new roles. But data shows they won't need to have the perfect skill set to start transitioning. While 2/3 of employers expect to get a return on investment in employees' reskilling programs within just 1 year, governments will also need to step in to update and fund education and training systems and to ensure displaced workers have adequate safety nets. With purposeful leadership and collaboration, we can turn this global crisis into a unique opportunity to transition into a future of jobs that is inclusive, fair, and sustainable.
So as we set the context for today's session, we see that increasingly, more and more, there is a huge technological change that has happened, wherein all roles, all domains, and multiple facets of how our future work is going to look is all taken up by technology and AI, right? So what also happens is this has kind of gone ahead to create a sense of fear in a certain level in many people who are going to be going into the workforce or already in the workforce, wondering about how it's really going to be for them going in the future, right? Is a robot or is AI actually going to replace them when we go ahead, or are they still going to have opportunities for themselves? Now, the fact of the matter is it is possible for technology to largely go ahead and simplify the way things are done, to reduce the amount of human error that's there, and to basically make quick decisions and process large amounts of data, which it would take a human much longer to do, right? But there are various other skills that only human beings are capable of performing. And our discussion today is to understand what those skills are, and secondly, to see how we can go ahead to hone and develop those skills. The first skill that is something that really stands out is the judgment and complex decision-making skill, all right? Now, while machines might be able to analyze data at inhuman speeds and depth, ultimately, the decisions regarding what needs to be done with that information must be made by humans themselves, right? So humans who have the ability to take input from data and think about the larger implication of what this means are basically going to be very important members of any team going ahead, correct? So it's sometimes not as simple as putting in some algorithm and saying, okay, this is how it should look, because there are various other components that really come into play that also need to be considered. Now, when we're looking at how you can work on creating this, essentially, you need to become an rather not become, you need to create a questioning habit. Okay. So whenever you look around, see, when we're talking about judgment and decision making, there has to be an inquiry state of mind wherein every time you see something around you, go ahead and question it, right? Think about why something exists or why it's done the way it's done, right? The only way we can actually make better decisions or expand our horizons really, or go out of our comfort zone, is when we begin to push the envelope and think of new and different possibilities, correct? How would you be someone who can actually make a good judgment call if you have never been in a situation where something has actually been difficult for you to do, right? So put yourself into those situations, create a questioning habit, have that inquisitive bent of mind, and that's something that you should hone and work on. The second thing that we're going to arrive at is creativity. Now, creativity, as much as a computer is good at spitting out numbers and giving you a lot of information on different things. I mean, nowadays, AI or technology or robots can even produce food, they can produce music, they can, create, but they cannot come in with this feeling or the sensation of actually creating a product, right? So the actual creativity of building something. Now, an AI or a robot, an AI tool or a robot can actually go ahead and help you with the construction, right? Imagine a beautiful building that's being built, right? A human being has to actually conceptualize and visualize that, right? Then we can take the help of a robot to go ahead and build it a lot more efficiently and quickly. But it's not that a robot can put together an idea in that sense, or something that you can go ahead and really create out of the robot's mind, right? So that's where human beings have a huge advantage in terms of creativity. Excuse me. Sorry. I'm sorry about that. All right. So yeah. So look at opportunities around you where you can actually practice your creativity, right? Something as simple as brushing your teeth with your eyes closed actually activates your brain, right? We're so used to doing things in a certain way without thinking about it, that doing even normal day-to-day activities in a slightly different manner, right? Or maybe getting ready when the lights are all turned off, or trying to do something different, right? So go ahead and start exploring different areas. Decorate the space that you're around, right? Try cooking different recipes. Or if you don't like cooking, think of inventive ways where you can mix and match and actually create something without putting in that much effort, right? Maybe you like writing, painting, sculpting, sketching, singing, dancing, whatever. So basically, look at avenues where you can really go ahead and explore different creative aspects. And that's really something that's important, because when you think about it, right? When you're reading a book sometimes, or maybe you're watching a movie, it really creates a strong sense of emotion in you, correct? It could be joy that you're feeling for the characters, either in the book or the movie or the series that you're watching, or anger or frustration. Yeah. But can you ever imagine a machine creating that kind of a thing? It's not possible, right? Unless and until a human being has really experienced that and felt that emotion. And that's when they're able to convey that emotion. And that's something that a machine will really not be able to do going ahead, right? Communication and empathy. Now, this is something that there is no way robots can even, compare with us on that. Now, imagine, I think in one of my previous sessions, I was talking about how, robotic surgery can be done and robots are going to be used in the future for going. But imagine a robot coming out to give the news to a patient or to the patient's family about the status of the patient, right? It's going to be clipped, it's going to be emotionless, and it's going to be very difficult for the family to process that information, correct? So the element of empathy is really very important. And we're looking at, communication in itself, right? How are machines going to communicate? They are just going to go ahead and do what is programmed into them, right? Where is that sense of emotional intelligence, of empathy that's really going to come in, right? So for you also, as a young student today, it's important to see how you can go ahead and develop these communication skills. Now, communication is not just purely being able to talk well or being able to kind of just get your point across, correct? It also means that you have to be able to understand, you have to be able to listen, and you should ideally not interrupt a speaker midway, correct? Now, even if you do have a lot of points that you feel you want to talk about, start jotting them down, right? Wait till the speaker finishes talking and then go ahead and put your point across. Because a lot of times what happens is, even with communication, right? The speaker conveys the message in a particular way or manner, and this is then interpreted by someone else in another manner, right? Now, be honest, be respectful in your responses, right? And that ways you will become a lot more confident in your communication. And let's just think of something as simple as body language. Okay, imagine you guys are, want to go to your parents to get permission to do something. Maybe go out, watch a movie, whatever it is that you want to do, right? Now, you also know that at certain points of time, when you look at your parents, they're going to be in a good mood, right, for something or the other. And that's a good time to ask them versus when they're in a bad mood, right? So what are you going to do? You're going to kind of look at the situation, analyze their body language, get a sense of whether that's going to be a yes or no for you, and then go ahead and ask that question, right? So effectively, what we're saying is these are skills that a machine can never really, it can't understand, it can't read body language in that sense, right? But it may be able to follow a command, but not necessarily read body language. And that's where it becomes another strength for humans versus robots. The next thing that we talk about is strategy and automation. Now, essentially what happens is, let's take an instance of, okay, let's talk about Instagram, right? So many of you do follow different influencers, and they're all creating a lot of content and posting it out there. Now, while there are AI tools, for instance, that can go ahead and, create a schedule for you, right? You can go ahead and schedule your posts. Maybe you want to put out posts once a week or once a month with a certain frequency, a certain content type. All of that stuff can go in, right? But what an AI tool cannot do is really look at the strategy or the idea, correct, to basically bring those posts to life. Correct. So any job that requires strategic thinking really needs human intervention, because that's when you can actually think about what it is that you want to do. See, if you think of something like innovation, like creating something, right? Like imagination, dreaming, any of these things are not going to be possible, right? An AI tool or a robot can take existing data and interpret that data and draw logical inferences based on the various parameters. But what it cannot do is create something in its own mind, correct? And that is, and therefore, another skill that becomes very important. So basically, when you're looking at these skills, what you need to look at is identifying what are the skills that really set humans apart from robots, and then work on different ways for you to start developing these skills a lot more effectively, right? And now we come to critical thinking, right? Now, let's look at a scenario, okay? Maybe there is a particular situation, and this situation is fed into the robot, right? So, maybe you want to, let's say what? Okay, maybe you want to become a very, very broad-based thing. You want to become a chef, and, there is this whole inclination towards you becoming an engineer. So you go ahead and then, take some sort of, an AI assessment, and you're trying to figure out what you want to do, right? And then maybe even in that report, it says, oh, no, you should become an engineer. But in your heart, you feel that, no, you know what? I want to become a chef because I know this is what works well for me. So you can still go ahead and apply your critical thinking. And then even though there is the robot or the AI has already told you there is a 99% chance of that not being a good option, you can still go ahead and do it and go ahead and make a success out of it, right? So human beings have something called the gut or the intuition. And this comes into play in multiple scenarios, right? It could be, a decision that you're taking at a personal level, at a professional level. Maybe you are thinking about, sometimes when you're preparing for exams, you just have a feeling that, I think these two chapters are going to be a lot more important and the questions are going to come from here. And lo and behold, when you do write your exam, it actually ends up coming from there, right? So essentially what happens is there is no dearth of information nowadays online, right? Everywhere you turn, there is so much of information that is available. But how do we then use our human intelligence to be able to discern the quality of information, correct? Is this information accurate? Is it fake? Is it a rumor? Is it actually absolutely authentic, right? So when you're critically thinking, you're actually putting on your thinking hat. You're not just accepting information just because it's handed to you, and you're able to determine whether it's reliable and what is it that you need to do with this information, correct? So for you to actually go ahead and work on developing these skills, it is important for you to go out and literally look around you, right? Observe, maybe the community that you live in, maybe the students in your school, maybe different, places or organizations that you get to kind of interact with. And go ahead and put together a list yourself of the different kinds of problems that are being faced, right? What could be some of these innovative ways by which you could actually think of solutions for these problems, right? And the reason we're saying critical thinking really comes in here is because sometimes it's not just black and white, right? It's not just that okay, this is a problem, this is a solution. It's not, in many cases, it's not so direct, correct? So if you have that critical thinking component, you are able to evaluate different opportunities and then decide which one really comes into it, right? So let's take another instance, right? Listening to music without lyrics. Okay. Now, sometimes, or for some people, I know that they like, the lyrics more than the actual song. Some people like the tune more than the lyrics. I mean, it could be a different combination of things, right? So if someone was to ask you, why is this your favorite song? Try and break down the components, right? Critically analyze what is, I'm just giving you a very simple example. You can really go ahead and apply it with anything that you want. But when you go ahead and look at it this way, you are able to determine and decide, hey, you know what? This is why I really like this song, right? So in every scenario, guys, I need you all to start implementing this. So while we know that these are the skills that are going to make us stand out, right, or set us apart in the future, it's not that you start working and you automatically develop these skills, right? There are various opportunities presented to you when you're in school, when you're in college, to really put these into practice. And a skill becomes a power only when you are able to practice it, right? So do go ahead and in small bits and pieces. If you look at the points that I mentioned, they're really very simple, very easy to do kind of items, because this is what you need to do to make a practice out of it, right? And then by the time you actually get into the workforce, you automatically are someone who has their critical thinking hat on. You're automatically someone who is looking at out of the box creative solutions, right? You're automatically someone who can actually strategize and think about what's required and then make good judgments based on that. All right. So these, my dear friends, are some of the skills that are really going to set you apart from robots in the future. And I'm really happy that you all have joined us for the Cialfo Learning Series. Please do stay for the question and answer section. If any of you all have any questions, happy to take them right now.